Is it better or worse to be, from the public's point of view, should they be more or less comfortable with funding coming from outside the legal community versus inside the legal community? Because, on the one hand, one way you could frame it is the judges who are contributing to Judge Mellon aren't likely to have business before the bench, whereas some of the business interests that have contributed to you might.
Well, my concern with the judges contributing to Judge Mellon is that they are the ones who are largely responsible for the lack of diversity amongst the commissioners. There are 14 commissioners in San Francisco, and they're appointed by judges, and not a single one is Hispanic. And from my informal understanding of how that process works, it's not a process in which diversity is the first priority. And when I mean diversity, again, I don't mean diversity just in terms of gender or ethnicity. I mean in terms of practice area. So I think it's particularly disturbing that these judges who have made many public pronouncements about diversity, they've participated in diversity task forces, plural, and reports, and all sorts of other kind of hand-wringing, have a colleague who they don't feel strongly about, but because they feel that they must somehow stand together, they're going to contribute to him, to the extent of soliciting a $5,000 contribution from a Supreme Court justice. I think the other issue, if I may, Scott, is that it's a bit of a red herring to talk about the money, because as your newspaper so eloquently editorialized in the cartoon, the judicial selection process is about special interests and about money. There's a reason why attorneys who represent farm workers are not getting appointed in boatloads to the bench. And as your cartoon showed, Governor Schwarzenegger standing around with a bunch of cigars and saying, yes, we have diversity. We have diversity from the hedge fund money, and we have diversity from the real estate interests. And I think what your cartoon was trying to say was that those kinds of special interests and the money that is behind them has a very strong influence on how judges are selected in this state. So for us to talk about me raising a little bit of money here or my opponent raising a little bit of money there gives the voters the impression that, and the legal community impression that somehow the process has been clean up until now, and now here comes along this fellow who's going to inject money into the process.
Do you think we shouldn't cover or pay attention to that part?
No, I think you should, but I think you should talk about some of the points that I'm making now. I think that it would be silly, wouldn't it, for some anonymous lawyer to come along and say, well, I'm going to challenge this judge. I have absolutely no ability to raise money. I have no name recognition whatsoever, so no, I think you should cover the money issue, but you should do it in a balanced way. And I think that it would be silly for someone to come along, an attorney, and say, I have absolutely no ability to raise money. I have no name recognition. No one knows who I am, but I stand for diversity, and I'm going to run against this judge who's now being supported by the entire judicial establishment, including a Supreme Court justice whose wife is going to give him $5,000. It's just naive. You can't do it that way.
Can I just go back to the commissioners issue for a minute? I'm pretty sure there is an African American, a Native American, and a Asian American commissioner on the SF Superior Court. So is it specifically that there's not been any Hispanic court commissioners appointed that you're objecting to in that part of your platform?
Yes,
Do you feel like overall the diversity is okay, or?
No, I do not. I do not believe that 2 Hispanics out of 67 judges and commissioners in a city that is 15% Hispanic is sufficient. 15% of the population is Hispanic, which would translate in literal terms to nine judges. So to have 2, I don't think is fair. I think it does not engender public confidence. My experience has been many times in a criminal courtroom setting that I would be sitting there, and I would be the only person in the room who was not in custody or not a client, right? Who was not Anglo. So you would have every single person in that room, from the judges to the bailiffs to the court clerks to district attorneys and the public defenders, who are all Anglo, and every single other person in that room, meaning the in custody clients and the out of custody clients, were all either black or Latino. And I'm sure that scenario is duplicated statewide from day to day, on different days. So when I look at Governor Schwarzenegger's appointments and I see that out of 304 appointments, he's appointed 9 African Americans, it makes me pause and think about how fair that is. I think that many people who come and access the courts, whether they are in a criminal setting or in a family law setting or in a juvenile law setting or whatever it may be, also make this observation, especially if they are Spanish speaking, but I'm sure also if they're African American and other things, and they wonder just how fair the process can be.
Can I ask a kind of philosophical question? I mean, from right now you're challenging a sitting judge, but let's say you win and you get on the bench. Where do you think it's appropriate to draw the line from the public's point of view of, essentially booting a judge out of a seat through the electoral process? There's been a lot of talk in the legal community in recent years about maintaining judicial independence, and there is some tension between putting on a people-pleasing kind of face from the judge's point of view, keeping your attorneys happy, avoiding peremptory challenges, like some judges have had if they've upset the DA's office or the public defender's office. When do you think it's appropriate for the public to step in and take someone off for raising some sort of complaint, diversity, demeanor, or otherwise? And when do you think it's appropriate to leave a judge on and say, they should be insulated from that so they can do their job and not worry about pleasing people, meeting diversity goals, and that sort of thing?
Well, I know this isn't what you mean, so I know you won't be offended if I say this. This campaign is not about the fact that Judge Mellon is not good at pleasing people. The fact is that if you talk to trial attorneys and if you talk to ones who've appeared in front of him over the course of the last 10 years, whether they were in criminal law, family law, which I urge you to call a few family law practitioners, or in civil law, that his demeanor has not been one that is consistent with the appearance of fairness and with the due process that people expect. Many people have complained about the way he treats attorneys in front of clients, what they perceive to be an eroding of their credibility, and that is the issue. It's not some lighthearted issue about pleasing people.